May 13th, 2007, the final day of the Premier League season. With seconds left in the first half of a match between champions Manchester United and relegation favourites West Ham, the ball loops off Wes Brown's right boot and into the Old Trafford sky. Carlos Tevez, in default wasp attack mode, meets it and slides the ball between the legs of Edwin Van Der Sar and into the net to secure a 1-0 victory for the Londoners. Although scored in Manchester, this goal had its most profound impact in Sheffield. However, it was a goal with its roots, or perhaps tentacles, in South America, Russia and Israel. A goal so dramatic it was the end game of a transfer seemingly masterminded by two Russian oligarchs with direct links to Vladimir Putin. In fact, it was a transfer so murky that it would be illegal now. Carlos Tevez and Javier Mascherano had starred earlier that summer as Argentina reached the quarter-finals of the World Cup in Germany. On the eve of a new season, they stood alongside West Ham manager Alan Pardew at Upton Park, clutching the famous claret and blue shirts, in an improbable turn of events made even more bizarre by the clandestine backdrop to the transfer. This was no rerun of Ricky Villa and Osvaldo Ardiles joining Tottenham Hotspur in 1978. This was about football's ceaseless globalisation and merciless ambition to do a deal. The phrase undisclosed fee has never seemed so suspicious as it did in the arrival of Tevez and Mascherano. A Tel Aviv-based super agent, Pini Zahavi, who reportedly led negotiations when Roman Abramovich bought Chelsea in 2003, was present at the unveiling of the players. Kia Jarabchian, a young businessman raised in Britain who'd started out running car dealerships in Essex and Kent with his Iranian father, was also there, and he would ultimately prove to be the public face of arguably the Premier League's most controversial transfer. In 2004, Jarabchian's London-based Media Sports Investments, MSI, struck a 10-year deal with Corinthians, one of Brazil's biggest football clubs, investing $35 million for a share of the team's profits. Exiled from Moscow, Boris Berezovsky and Arkady Patakatsishvili were said to be behind the secretive MSI, playing key roles in the financial and operational objectives of the business. At Corinthians, they took control of the transfer rights of Tevez and Mascherano, who signed from Boca Juniors and River Plate. And by the mid-2000s, third-party ownership had become commonplace in South America, with Jarabchian and his associates becoming leading exponents of the practice. There are ways of bringing outstanding players to clubs that would not be able to afford them ordinarily, he told the Daily Mail. What happens in Brazil particularly is that clubs cannot afford to buy a player. So they go to a business, a bank, a major supermarket, an individual, a person, a wealthy individual and say, "We want Mr. X. You put up 70, 80, 100% of the money and let him play here." Now, it's a little bit like a loan deal between two clubs, except it's a loan deal between the club and a third party. Despite Jarabchian having previously claimed that Tevez will leave Corinthians if a team pays the contract release clause, which is between £69 and £83 million, a very different agreement was struck with West Ham. According to a New York Times report, the players signed for nothing, on the proviso that they had absolute freedom to move clubs at a later date. And it's this part of the deal that would prove so divisive and act as a catalyst for a global ban on third-party ownerships. If the oligarchs had been passive investors in the two players, West Ham would have complied with the rules, but it would become clear that they had complete control over the next transfer of the Argentines. According to Premier League rules, that was not allowed. Third parties could not acquire the right to influence the policies or performance of teams, explained the newspaper in an excerpt from Football's Secret Trade, how the player transfer market was infiltrated by Alex Duff and Tariq Panya. Despite the arrival of Tevez and Mascherano, West Ham started the season in dismal form, going 9 games without a win and failing to score in 7. In November, a consortium led by Egert Magnusson, the president of Iceland's Football Association, completed an £85 million takeover. Shortly after that, the new board replaced Pardew with Alan Kirbishley and loaned Mascherano, who'd made just 5 league appearances, to Liverpool. Tevez had made his debut as a substitute on September the 10th in a 1-1 draw at home to Aston Villa, where he came on for Marlon Harewood. A move that has raised many eyebrows. Now, can he make the difference? Pondered commentator Rob Hawthorne, somewhat understating the Hulk-like impact the Argentinian was destined to have. Tevez, who netted his first West Ham goal in the epic 4-3 Premier League defeat to Tottenham at Upton Park in February, scored 7 in the final 2 months of the season and was named Hammer of the Year. But the closing stages of the campaign were mired in controversy for the club, who were fined £5.5 million at the end of April after being found guilty of acting improperly over the two transfers. An FA Premier League panel concluded they knew the only means they could acquire them would be by entering into the third-party contracts. Equally, they were aware the FAPL, at the very least, may not, and in all probability would not, have approved of such contracts. They determined to keep their existence from the FAPL. The Manchester United victory was the last and most significant of 7 wins from West Ham's last 9 games. But the fallout from the transfer had repercussions far beyond the league table, which saw Sheffield United relegated to the Championship after a 2-1 defeat to Wigan. They took legal action against West Ham, and 12 months later, an independent FA tribunal ruled in their favour. We have no doubt that West Ham would have secured at least 3 fewer points over the 2006-2007 season if Carlos Tevez had not been playing for the club, stated the chair, Lord Griffiths. Consequently, West Ham reached an out-of-court settlement worth almost £20 million with Sheffield United, while Tevez moved to Manchester United. Meanwhile, the Football Association banned third-party ownership at the beginning of the 2008 season. A year before, FIFA established a working group to evaluate the practice within the game, concluding that TPO has harmful effects on football and its essential values, thereby undermining the overall integrity of the game. They reached a decision to issue a global ban in December 2014.